Can I disable infinite scroll for all sites? I hate sites with infinite scrolling, mostly because they use up all my RAM. Is there any way to convince websites not to load this way? Maybe a browser extension that turns it back into separate pages? A way to get the browser to report that it doesn't support it? Something I could uninstall?
There are several convincing reasons why the answer is no. Some sites add content dynamically, for example Facebook, the moment you scroll down, so these are probably the cases you are not after. Other sites add content dynamically independent of user interaction, such as scrolling. In principle, these could be handled somehow by preventing/throttling the responsible web connections once the page is full. However, trying to re-enable this transparently in case you decide to go to the next page is probably doomed, as one may expect the processes to have given up because of timeouts. Then again, there are pages that simply output lots of page content, maybe even static content. The client might simply kill the connection once there is enough to render a screen full of data, but that means that to get to the next page, you'd have to start loading the page afresh. With many pages, this will cause a lot of wasted bandwidth for useless reloads. Also, this may not be desirable in case of side effects, such as online orders. Alternatively, the client might throttle the TCP connection until you select to go to the next page. I'm afraid the web servers out there won't be happy, and drop your connection with such a solution because it wastes their resources. Moreover, if you want to be able to flip back through previous pages, you still have the problem of needing to keep the full content in RAM or cache. Yet another alternative would be to download the page completely and simply display it pagewise. But that is equivalent to what you have right now. Scroll through a long page. You might only hope that most part of the memory footprint is in disk instead of RAM, so maybe this option is not too far-fetched. All this does not take into account that the overall layout may require more or less full page content to decide what the pages should look like or where to break pages. The only really feasible way I see is to make use of mechanisms that allow for page display of the a priori unpaged content, to use media column print styling, which would essentially amount to downloading the page and making a print preview. You may already have observed that many pages display awfully in print or print preview, even though many styling options are available to web developers to address paging specifically, so imagine what you would get. However, if one were to employ this as a, for example, Firefox add-on, the workflow would be that the page downloads and will then be presented like in parent preview. Without going deeply into the bowels of the browser, this will still result in the full page being held in RAM, so not what you are after.
When using Firefox, one can use the add-on Kill Infinite Scroll, currently at version 0.79.4. This add-on is described as: this disables the infinite scroll used by Tumblr and other sites. In particular, it cripples the scripts from this URL, version 1.4 and 2.0. Unlike the anti-Tumblr Infinite Scroll add-on, it just restores the original next and prev buttons. I believe that restoring the next and prev buttons is preferable to just destroying the scroll, as one can still scroll but memory usage will stay just about constant. Otherwise, to destroy the scroll, I suggest that rather than using AdBlock, you might be better off using an extension like Noscript to disallow all JavaScript on all websites except for the ones you trust, or at least disallow third-party JavaScript. This is actually a defense mechanism that everyone should be using against drive-by browser viruses. Whenever you would like to re-enable scroll temporarily, you may do that by temporarily allowing scripts, which stays in effect until the browser is closed.
You could use AdBlock/UpBlock to block the code that loads the next page. This is crude, but works. For instance, I also tried these, but they did not work. But someone who is good with adblock filter rules, not me, could develop a block list to block infinite scrolling on many sites. Or use add-ons or user scripts to override this behavior and replace it with something more user-friendly. This add-on kind of disables it on Tumblr. For instance, this URL it still loads a new page automatically when you reach the bottom, which is annoying, but it replaces the current page instead of appending it, and demonstrates a proof of concept of what could exist. I've tried starting a list here, but I'm not an expert at adblock rules. This URL.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.